Welcome to the first edition of BTW, Tefilah Workshop. I'm very excited about this new series, and it is because something I'm very passionate about, but I do think I must preface and just say that when it comes to a very sensitive task, like being a Tefilah, a Shliach Tzibor, a Chazan, a Cantor, whatever you want to call it, it might seem very presumptuous for someone to think that they can properly give over a course on how to be a fitting Baal Tefilah, and I want to make sure it's absolutely clear that the reason why I am invested in this particular topic, it's not necessarily because I think I'm an absolute expert at the topic, but on the contrary, it's something that I do regularly. I am a regular Baal Tefilah, and I in fact am a Baal Tefilah professionally. And due to that, I would like to myself perform better. And when I say perform, I don't just mean produce beautiful sounds, but I mean do an actual better job at the sensitive role of being a Baal Tefilah, which we have to talk about, because apparently it's not just being a singer and it's not just being an entertainer, although yes, being an entertainer in this regard, in a certain regard anyway, is important, and we will get to all of that at its proper time. But because I would like myself to be more fitting at this task, and since again I'm passionate about it and I think others can benefit from a course like this, I wanted to do this series. And what I'm hoping to get out of this series, for myself, a better concept of what the task of being a Baal Tefilah is. I would like to also share from my own experiences and share from my own producing of the Nusach. I will, Be'ezras Hashem, later in the series, we'll do some demos of different part of the davening, which I think will be enjoyable for everybody. And yes, I do hope that this course is not necessarily just a course for people planning to daven for the Amud, or people planning to be Chazanim, people who are about to be hired, or I hope that this should be something that's enjoyable for all listeners, even if you don't plan on doing any of these things, or even if for whatever reason, for one technical reason or another, you're not qualified. But still, you can enjoy what we're going to discuss in this series. So in this series, we will talk about the halachos when it comes to being a Baal Tefilah. We're going to talk about nuances in nusach. We're going to talk about meaning of the words. Maybe we'll here or there we'll touch on havara or havara, but probably in this case havara, though accent, which is very important, I would admit is not my strongest point, being an Ashkenaz American Jew who has somewhat yeshivish leanings. I wouldn't call myself true blue yeshivish, but definitely have the leanings. I do work on havara, but I admit here that it's not my strongest point, but I would definitely want to dabble in all of these things. So again, we'll talk halacha, we'll talk hashkafa, we'll talk about the tefillah, the nusach, hopefully the perush hamilim, the kavana, the meaning of the words. What should your intention be? And we're going to have some demos as well, to just, for people who are much better at learning from just listening and hearing the davening being done. So we'll have plenty of that, and it'll give us a chance to hear something nice, besides for just the speaking voice on a podcast. But we will have the davening itself. Hopefully we'll get bits and pieces of that. But before we do, I want to come back to that sensitive aspect of, first of all, what is the role of a Shliach Tzibor? What is the role of a Baal Tefilah? Who exactly is qualified? And how exactly we can make ourselves the best candidates to daven for the Amud, or at least notice who is a proper candidate for davening for the Amud. In this way, when we're making a choice about where we're going to daven, this is something that we should be conscious of. And so, without further ado, let's go right into the halachos. So the halachos for being a Baal Tefilah or a Shliach Tzibor, they can be found in the Shulchan Aruch or Achaim. Siman Nun Gimel. There are other places where this is discussed, but I think this is the first place, and this is where you find all the fundamentals. So, in Nun Gimel, in Sif Dalid, is where we get to the beginning of the discussion. We'll see how long we can go for today's episode, and Bezras Hashem, we'll keep going with the halacha. And again, we're going to try to touch all the different areas, and hopefully we will be able to enhance our davening. Okay, so it says the Shulchan Aruch, Shliach Tzibur tzarich sheyihi hagun. Shliach Tzibur must be fitted. He must be fit. So what does fit mean? He has to have a good physique? No, that's not what it means. Ve'ezahu hagun, says the Shulchan Aruch, who is someone who is fit? Sheyehei reikon me'averos. He's got to be empty from averos. So that basically disqualifies all of us. So then what do you do? All right, so the Pashtus is that if you have done averos, so you got to immediately do tshuva. Similar, if someone has to be an aide at a chasna, and he's going to be a witness at a wedding, so really to be a kosher aide, you have to be free from sin. So, it's a good hanhaga to have, that if someone asks you to take the honor of being an aide, you should do tshuva right then and there. And hopefully that'll make you fitting. But obviously this is very sensitive area, and also this would disqualify anybody who's living in Aveira. If there's someone that's perpetually doing an Aveira, so I don't know if it counts if you are, if you have no actual plans of doing teshuva, and you're just going through the verbiage of teshuva. You got to really have in mind to do teshuva. So. So, for example, someone who's Machal al Shabbos, he can't daven for the Amud. This is straight up in the Shulchan Aruch. I don't know what else to tell you. This is what the halacha says. V'shelo yatsa alav shem ra, says the Shulchan Aruch. He can't have a bad reputation. And it says, afilu bi'aldusa, so even from his youth. So, perhaps there are ways to get around a bad reputation, but if he has a reputation of not doing the right thing, so then that's not good. Now, here's a biggie. V'sheyihiyeh anav. He's got to be an anav. Okay, now what? We all know that Baal Tefilah, who is, just, very, very, very happy to hear his own voice, and that's something that we're going to come back to as well. But, some people, when they're davening for the Amud, so, that when they say, Mi chamoch ba'al givaros, umi do melach, right? So, you can tell what their kavana. When they say umi, what are they thinking of? Umi do melach. They're saying umi, and they're not thinking of Hashem. They're thinking of me, right? And me do melach, who's like you, who's similar to you, right? But in all seriousness, you have to be an anav, which is obviously something very hard to do when you are trying to produce absolutely beautiful sounds. And the answer to that, I think, is to be an anav doesn't necessarily mean to deny a talent that you have. But it does mean to have a certain mindset. It has to mean you can produce the beautiful sounds. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu was anav me'od mikol adam. He was the biggest anav in the world, and he knew that as fact because he had to write those words in the Torah. Right? So you can know that and also Moshe knew that there was nobody like Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu knew he was as great as he was because Hashem said that there's no Navi like him. Moshe Rabbeinu had to write this all in the Torah. So it's not necessarily a contradiction to be an anav and to know your quality. But it does mean to have a certain mindset. It means to carry yourself in a certain way. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't produce beautiful sounds, but maybe the way you sing, should be tapered. Certainly that you shouldn't be giving off the impression that you're not a anav. And you shouldn't, try to make it sound bad and low quality. Try to make it sound high quality. But I guarantee the kahila can hear. They can tell if they're Baal Tefilah, whether he sounds beautiful or not. They can tell if he's an anav, or at least if he's trying to be an anav. So he has to be an anav, umurutz ala'am, he has to be desired by the people. V'yesh lo ne'ima, he has to have a pleasantness, v'kolo arev, and he has to have a good voice. So we see already, like I mentioned earlier, he's an anav, but he wants to make beautiful sounds. He has to have a good voice. Or at least this is the ideal. The ideal Shliach Tzibur has a beautiful voice, and he's also an anav. The next one's also a biggie. Says the Shulchan Aruch v'ragil likros Torah neviim uksuvim. He has to be accustomed, he has to be familiar, fluent in reading Torah neviim uksuvim. Why? So the Mefarshim say that it's because much of the davening comes from there. Imagine you're trying to be the representative between the tzibur and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you don't know what you're saying, you don't get the references. Let's say you're amazing at reading Hebrew, but you have no idea what you're talking about. You're lacking basic kavana. How can you be shliach tzibur? So, we'll finish with this halacha, but I'll mention that coming back to what is the role of a shliach tzibur, and we still have plenty to discuss in this introductory sector of this series, but just to cut it for now, the role of a shliach tzibur, it is in the name. Shliach tzibur. You're a messenger of the tzibur. You are the go-between who stands in between the klal, the nation, the people, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that means you have to have in mind what you're doing, and it's not a place for arrogance. And this comes up again in the halachos, and we're going to come back to it. But Bezras Hashem, we'll see that the role of a shliach tzibur is so sensitive that you are. It's not just something that you're doing to produce nice sounds, but this is an activity of transcendence. You are trying to uplift yourself. You're trying to uplift others, and you're trying to make Hashem proud. So we should be zocheh to make Hashem proud in this endeavor, and Bezras Hashem will continue. And so we'll see you next time.